There have been some stunning claims about a coalition senator being drunk in the Senate chamber in Canberra last night. A Nine newspaper report claims to have confirmed from a number of other senators that country Liberal Senator for the Northern Territory, Sam McMahon, was, to quote them, maggoted and had to be helped from the chamber. Now, Senator McMahon has denied this through a spokesperson, saying she'd had a few drinks earlier and then felt ill in the chamber. Now, you can see the senator highlighted in the bottom left of this shot, appearing, shall we say, a little delicate, as she is assisted by two other senators, Michaelia Cash and Perrin Davey. Those senators have not answered our questions about whether Senator McMahon was drunk and why they were helping her or pointing her way out of the chamber. Now, this comes at an unfortunate time for McMahon because she faces a pre-selection in Darwin on Saturday, and she faces up to a number of challenges, including high-profile Indigenous advocate and friend of this program, Jacinta Price, who I've long argued should be able to make a great contribution in Canberra. Now, pre-selections can often turn up some dirty tricks with damaging information being leaked and the like. But whether or not you were drunk or ill in the Senate chamber in the nation's capital while you're at work, well, that's entirely in the hands of the senator herself. Let's go to Liberal Senator for Tasmania, Eric Abetz, who joins me in Canberra. Eric, presumably you were in the chamber last night. Was Sam McMahon sick or drunk?
I didn't notice anything. It was not drawn to my attention in any way, shape or form until I read media reports this morning, and I'm not able to comment any further.
Well, was the senator back at work today, or was she still feeling ill?
Absolutely. The senator's been back at work, and no issues.
Well, it's unusual for someone to sort of be assisted by a couple of other senators and ushered out of the Senate. Would it be unusual for a senator to be drunk on the job?
Look, hypothetical. Unusual for a senator to be drunk on the job. Most definitely, that would be highly unusual. There used to be those stories about a former Labor finance minister who's no longer with us, so I won't mention his name. But there are those reports from time to time, but in relation to Senator McMahon, I have nothing further to be able to say because I didn't see it or observe anything or spoken to anybody about it.
All right, let's go to some other matters of substance. And the Nationals in the Senate yesterday trying to pull a stunt on the Murray Darling Basin Plan. Do you think, I think they later today actually, they actually tried a similar move in the House of Reps. So the suggestion here, the evidence is that the Nationals are going to continue to push against this plan and to try and hold more water back. Do you worry where this issue will end up?
I have no doubt that the coalition will remain absolutely firm. It stands to reason that the National Party will from time to time have differing views and different approaches on issues, and they can test that in the Parliament as they did. Decisions are made, but the Cabinet and the government view remains strong, and we, of course, in the Liberal Party do allow conscience votes as well for people to cross the floor should they so wish. So, look, differing points of view, yes. Has it in any way impacted the coalition? I believe not.
All right, I want to talk to you about the Chinese ownership of the Port of Newcastle, or 50% ownership from Chinese interests. It's something we've focused on this program since last year, and you're one of the MPs who's written to your own Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, looking for some increasing oversight to be careful about what's going on there, effectively a monopoly port operator that's controlled by Chinese interests. Have you had any initial response from the Treasurer?
Yeah, I led the charge in relation to the 15 signatures. Can I add that Senator Jim Molan has since rung me to indicate that he would like his name added to it. I had a brief discussion with the Treasurer, and he and his staff have agreed to look into these matters further and get back in touch with me, so there is dialogue. But having a letter signed by 15, now 16 colleagues is indicative of the strength of feeling and concern amongst my colleagues that the monopoly supplier of port resources is a matter of concern generally, especially so when that monopoly supplier of services is in fact dominated by the Chinese Communist Party. And this Port of Newcastle operator boasts about itself as being part of the Belt and Road Initiative, praises Xi Jinping's approach, and that is why myself and others were concerned that in the event the dictatorship were to ask this company to jump, the only question they would ask is how high. That would do a great disservice to all the hunter jobs that rely on the export of coal and, of course, our international revenue raising in the sale of coal. So it's jobs in the hunter and the export dollars that we as a country can earn. 40% of Australia's coal exports go through that port, so very important strategically, and we've got to protect it and have a mechanism firmly in place prior to an actual dispute arising.
Now, let's get back onto the pandemic, and I highlighted at the top of the show how 3 senior ministers of the Singapore government have written about how that country needs to plan and move forward quickly to a new COVID normal. They point out we have great treatments now, much better treatment, much lower fatality rates for people who are infected with the disease. We've got vaccines rolling out, most of the vulnerable protected. And they point out that we shouldn't really be talking about infections in this environment, given how few infections are actually serious. We should only be talking about those who are very ill and, of course, fatalities if they occur, as we start to actually open up and never go back to lockdowns and border closures and restrictions dealing with this virus, given, as I repeat, so many of the vulnerable are vaccinated against it now.
Chris, I fully agree with you and the Singaporean observations. Like with a breakout in Sydney, we were told recently, I think the number was 19 at the time, that were tested positive, but were they asymptomatic? As I understand it, none of them required hospitalisation, let alone treatment in intensive care. I understand that in the United Kingdom now, the test is not how many people have tested positive, but how many people are in hospital in ICU. And of course in Australia, as I understand it, there's been nobody in that position for quite some considerable period of time. And I think there's nearly an expectation within the Australian community that we can somehow obliterate COVID-19. I don't think that's going to be the case. We will have to learn to live with it. And in those circumstances, let's get a genuine measure in relation to infection, and that is those that become ill from it and in fact need to be hospitalised.
Indeed, we do need to live with this virus. Just to correct you, I think, on those statistics, I do keep a close eye on these things. I have been doing for 18 months now. I think you'll find there was one person in intensive care in New South Wales earlier this week and one in Victoria. They're both out.
I stand
you're
corrected.
Right. There's no one in intensive care. They're both recovered, and there's no one in intensive care in this country at the moment. Thanks so much for joining us again, Senator.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Senator Eric Abetz there live from Canberra.